She thought she was humiliating a nobody, but within minutes, the entire restaurant would watch her confidence collapse. What she said to a simple waiter forced the owner to step out from the shadows, and when he revealed who he was, the room went silent. This wasn't just a rude customer story. This moment would change a life forever. She walked into the restaurant like the world owed her something. Every step echoed with entitlement, every glance carried judgment. Expensive heels, flawless makeup, designer clothes, everything about her screamed superiority. She didn't smile, she didn't greet anyone. She simply chose a table near the center, the kind of place where she could be seen. The restaurant itself was peaceful. Soft lighting, gentle music, couples talking quietly, families enjoying dinner. No one expected trouble. The waiter who approached her table was young, polite, and visibly hardworking. His uniform was neat, though clearly worn from long shifts. He greeted her warmly and asked if she'd like water or wine. She didn't respond at first. When she finally did, it was without looking up, just a dismissive nod. The waiter returned moments later with the menu, explaining the specials of the day. Halfway through his sentence, she interrupted him. "Speak slower," she said coldly. "Not everyone talks like that." He apologized instantly, his cheeks flushing. He adjusted his tone and continued. She sighed loudly, rolling her eyes as if the effort itself was beneath her. Nearby tables began to notice the tension, though most pretended not to watch. She asked questions about the food, but not out of interest. Every question was a trap. When he answered correctly, she scoffed. When he took a moment to confirm something, she smirked. Nothing he did was right. Finally, she ordered. The waiter repeated it carefully to avoid mistakes. She snapped at him for repeating. He apologized again. When the food arrived, she stared at it for 2 seconds, then laughed, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. She waved her hand sharply, signaling the waiter back like one would call a servant. He approached quickly, already apologizing, though he didn't know why yet. "This?" she said, pointing at the plate. "This is what you brought me?" He explained gently that it was prepared exactly as she ordered, but if there was an issue, he would gladly replace it. That was the wrong answer. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" she said, raising her voice. They were now. "I don't want apologies," she continued. "I want someone competent. Is that too much to expect from a place like this?" The waiter nodded, hands slightly trembling, and reached to take the plate. "Don't touch it," she snapped, standing up suddenly. "I'm not finished humiliating this disaster." The room fell quiet. She looked around, making sure everyone could hear her. This wasn't about food anymore. This was a performance. "People like you," she said, slowly, cruelly, "should be thankful you're even allowed to work here. Maybe if you weren't so useless, you wouldn't be serving tables." The words cut deep. The waiter froze. His eyes dropped to the floor. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He just stood there, absorbing every insult, because he needed this job, because walking away wasn't an option. Few customers shifted uncomfortably. Someone whispered that she was going too far, but no one intervened. No one, except the man sitting quietly at the far end of the restaurant. He had been there the entire time. Simple clothes, calm posture, no signs of wealth or authority. At first, he barely noticed the interaction. Difficult customers were nothing new. But when her insults turned personal, his attention sharpened. He watched the waiter's shoulders tense. He saw the humiliation in his eyes. The woman demanded the manager. The manager rushed over, apologizing repeatedly, offering discounts, free meals, anything to calm her down. She waved him off like he was nothing. "I want the owner," she said loudly. "This place is an embarrassment." The waiter remained silent, staring at the floor. Then, she leaned in close to him and whispered something meant to hurt. "You should know your place." That was when the man at the far table stood up, slowly, calmly. He placed his napkin down and walked forward. At first, no one paid attention. Then the manager noticed him and froze. The woman glanced at him and scoffed. "And who are you supposed to be?" she said. "This doesn't concern you." He didn't look at her, he looked at the waiter. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. The waiter nodded, confused. She laughed sharply. "Some kind of joke?" The man finally turned to her. "No," he said calmly. "I'm the owner." The restaurant went silent. The manager's face drained of color. The waiter looked up in shock. The woman's confident expression cracked for the first time. "You, the owner?" she said, forcing a laugh. "That's funny." He didn't smile. "I started this restaurant 15 years ago," he continued, his voice steady. "And one of the first rules I made was simple. Everyone here is treated with respect. Everyone." The woman tried to recover, straightening her posture. "Well, maybe you should train your staff better." He raised his hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "I watched everything," he said, "from the moment you walked in." Her face tightened. "You humiliated my employee," he continued. "Not because of the food, not because of service, but because you thought you could." The room felt heavy. The waiter's breathing was shallow now, unsure whether to be relieved or afraid. The woman crossed her arms. "I'm a paying customer." "And he's a human being," the owner replied. "Which matters more to me?" A murmur spread through the restaurant. The owner turned to the waiter. "You did nothing wrong," he said clearly. "You handled yourself with professionalism and patience." The waiter swallowed hard, his eyes stinging. Then the owner looked back at the woman. "And as for you," he said, "we won't be serving you tonight, or ever again." Her mouth fell open. "You can't be serious?" she said. "Do you know who I am?" He nodded slightly. "Someone who forgot how to treat people." Silence followed. What happens next will change not just her night, but the waiter's life in ways no one in that room could have imagined, and this was only the beginning. The room froze as the words sank in. The woman's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes darted around, looking for validation from nearby diners, but there was none. Whispers rose softly, the kind that slowly fill a room and make everyone feel the tension. The waiter's face, pale and tight with anxiety, slowly lifted. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The person who had been silently observing him all this time was not just anyone. He was the one who built this place, who set every rule, who had the authority she had mocked him for ignoring. The owner stepped closer, his steps measured but deliberate. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't shout. He didn't need to. His presence alone made her shift uncomfortably. Her carefully constructed confidence, the same confidence that had caused a dozen eyes to turn toward the table with anticipation, faltered. For the first time, she looked like she might not be in control of the room anymore. "I've seen everything," he said calmly. "From the moment you walked in, I watched you humiliate someone who is nothing but dedicated to this place. Someone who treats every guest with respect, someone who represents the heart of this restaurant." The words hit harder than any insult she had hurled. Her hand, which had been poised as if she was commanding attention, twitched slightly. Her carefully poised posture stiffened, and she opened her mouth to retort. But he didn't pause. He continued, each sentence deliberate, leaving her no room to regain control. "This man," he said, gesturing toward the waiter, "did nothing wrong. He has shown professionalism, patience, and dignity, all qualities you clearly have never learned to value. You came here thinking it was a stage for your arrogance. It is not. This is a place built on respect, not entitlement." Her laughter faltered. It was a short, nervous chuckle, not the confident laugh she had used before. She tried to regain control, but every eye in the restaurant was on her now. The whispering had grown into a hum of anticipation, as if the diners themselves were waiting to see how she would respond. It was not the attention she had wanted. The owner's gaze shifted slightly, sweeping the room, silently signaling the manager to step back and let the moment unfold. Then, almost as if reading her mind, he looked directly at her. "You are no longer welcome here. Not tonight. Not ever again." A gasp spread through the restaurant. Some patrons quietly murmured in surprise. Others exchanged glances, unable to believe the audacity of the situation. A customer, treated this way, and yet entirely in the wrong. The waiter, still standing rigid, felt a mix of relief and disbelief. The tension that had knotted his chest for the past several minutes began to loosen, replaced by a sense of vindication he had never expected. The woman's face went pale. She stammered, attempting a protest. You can't do that. I am a paying customer." The owner's voice didn't rise, but it carried authority. A paying customer does not have the right to degrade another human being. Respect is the rule here, and you chose to ignore it. That choice has consequences. She tried to hold on to her dignity, brushing back a stray lock of hair, straightening her jacket. "Do you know who I am?" she demanded, her voice cracking slightly. Her sentence died before it finished. The silence in the room made her falter. She realized, perhaps too late, that status and wealth do not grant the right to belittle others. She had underestimated the quiet authority of the man who owned the place, who had been watching with patience all along. The owner turned his attention back to the waiter. "And you," he said warmly, "handled yourself with grace. That is worth more than any compliment I could give. You showed patience and professionalism under pressure, and that is why you are valued here." The woman stood outside the restaurant, fuming. Her designer heels clicked sharply against the pavement, but the usual confidence was gone. For the first time in her life, wealth and status hadn't protected her. Every passerby who glanced her way seemed to sense the tension, and she felt a rare sting of humiliation. Inside, she had expected applause, compliance, admiration. Instead, she had been met with calm authority, dignity, and a man who saw through her arrogance. She fumbled for her phone, dialing a number, muttering that she'd never been treated this way. But even as she spoke, she realized her anger felt hollow. The situation had already unfolded publicly. The witnesses inside the restaurant, the diners, the waiter, even the manager, they had all seen her unravel. No call or complaint would undo that moment. Meanwhile, inside, the atmosphere slowly returned to normal. Diners whispered excitedly among themselves about what had just happened. Some clinked glasses silently. Others exchanged knowing looks. The waiter, who had been the center of the storm, sat back at his station, still stunned, but finally relaxed. For the first time that evening, he felt the weight lift off his shoulders. His hands, which had been shaking moments before, were now steady. The owner returned to his seat, calm and composed, a quiet smile on his face. "Are you all right?" he asked the waiter gently, his voice low enough that no one else could hear. The waiter nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, thank you," he said. Words weren't enough. The recognition from someone who truly understood the injustice he had endured felt like a shield, a protection he hadn't realized he needed. He had been humiliated, threatened, and made to feel small, yet, in the span of a few moments, dignity had been restored, not just for him, but for the idea that respect matters more than wealth. The rest of the evening unfolded quietly. The owner kept an eye on the restaurant, ensuring that service returned to its normal, calm pace. Diners continued their meals, now a little more aware of the subtle lessons in humility and integrity they had just witnessed. The woman, meanwhile, had moved on from the scene, but the story had already spread, whispered among patrons and shared through quiet conversations. The ripple effect of her arrogance and the owner's decisive response would not be forgotten soon. Later, the waiter found himself reflecting on the night. For years, he had endured rude customers, harsh words, and moments of quiet suffering, but tonight was different. Tonight, he realized that patience, professionalism, and quiet courage could turn a situation around completely. It wasn't about retaliating. It wasn't about confrontation. It was about maintaining dignity even when someone else tried to strip it away. He felt a newfound confidence swell inside him, a confidence born not from winning an argument, but from standing tall while someone else revealed their true colors. Word of the event spread quickly, first among the restaurant staff, then among the regular patrons. Many expressed support for the waiter, sending messages and compliments, praising his composure. Social media posts, short videos, and discussions cropped up the next day, highlighting the story as a lesson in humility, respect, and standing up for what is right. The waiter, once nervous and overlooked, found himself celebrated for something he hadn't sought, his integrity and calm under pressure. The owner, while quiet about his role, made it clear to his staff that such behavior would never be tolerated in his restaurant. Respect was non-negotiable. Every employee, from the busboy to the chef, understood that dignity mattered as much as service. The story of the woman who tried to humiliate a waiter and the owner, who stopped her cold, became a part of the restaurant's legacy, a tale shared to new staff as an example of courage, fairness, and leadership. The woman, for all her wealth and status, learned a lesson she would not forget. Her attempt to assert dominance over someone she perceived as inferior ended not in victory, but in public exposure and embarrassment. She realized, perhaps too late, that arrogance can backfire when met with quiet authority and moral strength. The waiter, once feeling powerless, now carried a story that would remind him every day of the strength in patience, respect, and composure. By the end of the evening, the restaurant had returned to its usual rhythm, but something had changed. The air was lighter, the staff prouder, and the diners a little wiser. A moment that began with tension, humiliation, and fear had ended with dignity, empowerment, and a powerful lesson about human decency.